Hi, welcome back to our segment. Welcome to the final segment. In the last segment of our MyNASA data training, you learned some details about choosing locations. You also learned about overlay plots and difference plots. We wanted to mention again that there are two other available lessons on the virtual campus. One is called March of the Polar Bears. So the parameter, I mentioned the parameter in this particular lesson is related to sea ice and surface temperature. And the scenario is that the polar bears are being tracked and they have a very difficult time. The tracking of polar bears is a real life event, and the lesson provides the tracks of the polar bears. The lesson shows the students how the natural habitat of the polar bear is shrinking, and also allows the students to explore why they think that has an impact and some of the parameters. When they generate the graph that goes with the lesson, you'll notice that the appearance, again from the live access server, the appearance of the graph looks very familiar now to you, but the parameter will be, in this graph, was the surface temperature. So in the polar bear lesson, you're not going to look at solar radiation unless you want the students to do that as an extension, but the students will be exploring what happens to the ice cover and snow cover and surface temperature. In the next lesson, which I mentioned was the Scientist Tracking Network, notice that we have the animation there, and that it shows that the amount of radiation globally varies by season. So when the students go through the Scientist Tracking Network lesson, the scenario is that they're going to use NASA data as clues to find the hypothetical or mysterious missing scientist. So each group is assigned a set of clues, and each group has to use the clues to find the scientist. And this is one of the animations that you can use to introduce that lesson. So this animation is a good introduction for the solar cell availability lesson and could be a good introduction for the Scientist Tracking Network lesson as well. The graph that we have here, again, should be very familiar to you. This is one of the graphs that's generated, and notice, for example, if you were talking about seasonal change of radiation in a specific location, this is definitely a nice way to show the cycles, the seasonal cycles. It's very predictable. And so if you pick a location that has definite seasons by latitude and longitude, the students will go in, like Preston mentioned. Notice this, it's very cyclic. It's very predictable by season. When you align our lessons with the national standards, if you go in for the search, notice that all of our lessons are aligned to national standards. The national standards that are particularly important to this lesson are data analysis and probability, and that's within the NCTM standards. Secondly, the science content standards, that's the National Education Standards. Content Area D, which is Earth and Space Science. Then you also have, they also have the technology, the ITEA standards. It's a great way to practice technology in the classroom to integrate computer use and some of the current technology. Geography skills. Often the students don't even realize that they're learning geography when they're doing MyNASA data. But as you saw in the video clips, the students have to navigate over the country for their Rockstar tour. So it's a very nice way to introduce geography. Definitely the polar bear lesson it brings in geography as well as climate study. Then by teacher request, we will have the AP Environmental Science topics there for you. Specifically, these were identified by a group of environmental teachers, and they said that the lesson on solar availability would be very appropriate for atmospheric circulation, solar electricity study, which we've already mentioned, solar energy, solar intensity, how that varies by latitude. Thank you for visiting with My NASA Data. As you saw in the video, the students will be engaged. We hope that you will use our lessons, and thank you so much for tuning in to the virtual campus.